My name is Camille Harper. I'm 36 years old. And this is the story of how my own family mocked me, excluded me, dismissed me for over 2 decades. Until the day they walked into our house, only to realize I was the one holding the deed. It all started, as it always did, with an email. Subject: Don't forget the Harper family reunion. Summer in Monterey. It was exactly 9 a.m. on a Monday when it hit my inbox. Cheerful tone, excessive exclamation marks, sent by my older sister Elise, the ever-glowing, ever-adored firstborn. You'd think after 20 years I'd be numb to it. But no, it always landed the same, like a gut punch hidden inside pastel fonts. I was sitting in my 28th floor office in downtown Seattle, sunlight painting the glass walls with golden streaks, when my assistant Jane walked in with 2 espressos. "Family reunion again?" she asked, her voice careful. He nodded. "Same script. Different year." Jane set the cups down gently. "They still pretending it's your vacation too?" I gave a short, dry laugh. "Only if you count sleeping in the guesthouse garage as a luxury retreat." Because that's what it had come to. For the last 7 years, I hadn't had a proper place to sleep during reunions. Elise and her husband took the master suite. My brother Ryan and his chaotic startup dreams got the West Wing. Even the kids had their rooms carefully marked. And me. Camille might want to look into nearby hotels. We're at full capacity. Hope that's okay. Every year they pretended to include me. And every year I pretended to believe them. But not this year. This year I was holding a letter from our board of directors naming me Executive Vice President of Strategic Growth for the entire Pacific Northwest region. Promotion I fought tooth and nail for. I beat out 12 other candidates. I landed a $400 million merger that shook the industry. And no one in my family even knew. 'Cause they never asked. They didn't know I graduated top of my class at Dartmouth. Didn't know I built a non-profit that helped women in tech. Didn't know I redesigned our firm's operational framework and doubled profits in less than 2 years. All they knew was that Camille was quiet, Camille was independent, Camille was fine on her own. In reality, Camille had spent 20 years being the family's emotional dumping ground. The one who understood when Elise got the attention, when Ryan got the investments, and when Mom said the same thing every year. "We didn't want you to feel out of place, honey. It's just... everyone else arrived earlier." What she meant was, "You're not important enough to make space for." I remember when I was 11. Mom asked me to help set the table while Elise and Dad prepared a toast in the backyard. The sun was setting in Monterey Bay, light hitting the ocean in soft gold, and I stood inside, sweaty, ignored and alone, listening to laughter that didn't include me. That was the summer I stopped asking to be seen. Now, 25 years later, the estate where all this happened, where I once imagined I'd walk down the aisle someday or read bedtime stories to kids of my own, had turned into a place where I was invited out of obligation, only to be politely cast aside. But this year was going to be different, because the house was listed for sale. Quietly, without a single word to me. I found the listing by accident, or maybe fate, 3 weeks before that email from Elise. I was browsing a site for vacation properties in Northern California when I saw it. Historic bayfront estate, needs renovation, price reduced by 20%. The photos were unmistakable. The porch swing Dad built. The kitchen with cracked tile. The ivy that curled around the balcony like a secret. They didn't tell me because they didn't think I could afford it. That's when the decision crystallized. No rage. No vengeance. Just clarity. I wasn't going to ask for space anymore. I was going to own it. The next morning I called Linda, my financial advisor. "Is our holding company still active?" "Yes. Harper and Easton Properties." "What are you thinking?" I sent her the link. "I want this house. Quietly. Under the LLC. No one can know it's me." Within a week, we had an accepted offer. The owners, desperate to offload a property in disrepair, didn't ask many questions. The money was wired from my bonus account. The closing paperwork signed in my corner office, with my espresso still warm. And just like that, The estate that had haunted my childhood was mine. Not because I needed revenge, but because I needed closure. Elise's next email was even more oblivious than the first. "We're so excited for the reunion. Everyone gets their old rooms again. Camille, I think there's a nice Airbnb about 6 minutes away. Hope that's okay." This time I didn't reply. 'Cause I had plans. Plans that involved checking in 3 days early, walking through the front door, my front door, and waiting patiently for them to arrive, clueless, entitled, and still thinking I was the guest. I was done trying to be invited. It was time for them to learn what it meant to be welcomed on someone else's terms. I arrived in Monterey 3 days before the reunion was set to begin. The weather was soft and coastal, the kind that seemed to wash old memories ashore without warning. But I wasn't here to dwell in nostalgia. I was here to reclaim it. The estate looked the same from the outside. That same aging charm, the wraparound porch faded by time, and the scent of jasmine still trailing along the fence like a whisper from a past that never fully let me in. But now I had the key. Real one. When I stepped inside, the creak of the floorboards greeted me like an old scar. Familiar but no longer painful. I didn't bother unpacking much. Just a sleek duffel bag, my leather briefcase, and a folder of documents with the Brookwell-Hensley merger stamped across the top. The air inside was stale, sunbeams slicing through closed curtains. It looked like no one had been here for weeks, which made sense. They hadn't told me it was on the market because they'd stopped caring a long time ago. Probably assumed the bank would foreclose quietly and they'd still get to parade around it once a year like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. That afternoon I took a quiet walk through the house. The living room still had the old floral couch from the 90s. The upstairs hallway held framed photos of Elise's wedding, Ryan's high school basketball games, and Mom and Dad on their 25th anniversary cruise. There were no photos of me. I stopped in front of the guest bathroom, where I once spent a birthday crying because Elise had accidentally forgotten to bring a slice of cake upstairs for me. She was too busy making a toast. And Mom had shrugged it off. "You've always been more private, Camille," she said back then. "I figured you'd want quiet time anyway." I remember whispering to the mirror that night, "One day they'll see." Not to punish. Just to finally be seen. That evening, I stood on the balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sun bleed into the horizon. My phone buzzed with messages from Jane and Linda, confirming final design choices for my new place in Singapore. I was only weeks away from beginning my role as international vice president. It was the kind of title people dreamt of. But I had told no one in my family, because they'd never asked. The next morning was reunion day. They started arriving around 9 a.m., just as I had predicted. First came Mom's old Lexus, tires crunching up the gravel drive like clockwork. Then Elise's white BMW, sleek and smug. Then Ryan in his oversized pickup truck with oversized ambitions he never delivered on. I watched from the kitchen window as they began unpacking, chatting, laughing, completely unaware. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Mom approached the front door first, rummaging in her purse for her old key. I could almost hear her humming. Blick. She turned the key. Blick. Again. Nothing. "Elise," she called out. "Is this the wrong key?" "No, it's always worked," Elise replied, approaching with her own set. Blick. Blick. Nothing. Ryan snorted. "Maybe the lock's jammed." I waited a beat longer, letting them soak in the confusion, before stepping out of the hallway and into the foyer. The morning light poured in through the high windows, casting a golden glow across the polished floor I had redone last week. Then I opened the door. Their heads turned. Mom blinked in disbelief. "Camille," she asked, baffled. What are you doing here?" Smiled. Boys. Professional. "Welcome," I said softly. "To the Harper estate." Elise narrowed her eyes. "Wait. How did you get inside?" I stepped aside, motioning toward the table behind me. A white envelope with each of their names waited neatly next to a folder embossed with the logo of the Mira, a 5-star boutique hotel 10 minutes down the coast. "There's been a change," I said. The estate was listed for sale last month. I bought it. They stared at me like I had spoken another language. You bought it? Ryan asked, scoffing. With what money? You're in strategy or something, right? I picked up my iPad and turned it toward them, showing the headline from Forbes. The woman behind Brookwell's $400 million global merger. Camille Harper named youngest EVP in company history. I watched the color drain from Elisa's face. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it. Why didn't you say anything? She finally managed to whisper. I tilted my head. When's the last time any of you asked me how I was doing? Silence. Every reunion I got a folding chair, a leftover bed, a reminder that I wasn't really part of this family. But now I own the place you refused to make room for me in. I gestured toward the envelopes. Each of you has a luxury suite booked at the Mira for the week. Everything's arranged. Private chefs, sunset dinners, and even a gallery wall for your family photos. Ryan furrowed his brow. Wait. You're not coming. I gave a quiet laugh. No, I'll be staying here. I have work to finish and a relocation to prepare for. Singapore doesn't run on West Coast time. You're moving to Singapore, Elise said flatly. Next quarter. I'll be overseeing Brookwell's entire Asian operations. Mom clutched the envelope like it might fly away. But Camille, why didn't you ever tell us? I looked at her, at all of them. Because for 20 years, I thought if I became good enough, you'd finally see me. But now I know. I don't need to be seen by people who only open their eyes when there's something in it for them. They stood on the porch, stunned. Finally, Elise whispered. So, what happens now? Exhaled. Now you get to go enjoy your reunion. But from now on, this house isn't a monument to your memories. It's a reminder of what happens when you underestimate the person you ignored the most. They left without arguing. No shouting. No denial. Just the sound of retreating footsteps and the soft click of doors shutting. As I watched them drive away toward the hotel, I didn't feel triumphant. Felt free. And that was worth more than any photo on their wall. That night, the estate was quiet in a way I had never experienced before. No clinking glasses. No laughter echoing from the garden. No Elise directing everyone into photo lines. No dad barking orders at the grill. No being told to help out, while the favored children sipped wine by the fire. It was peace. The kind I didn't realize I'd been craving all these years. I walked barefoot down the hall, past the old den where Ryan once locked me out because the adults were talking, past the coat closet where I used to hide just to cry silently when no one noticed I was gone. Now it all felt different, not like ghosts but like closed doors. I curled up on the velvet reading chair in the study, freshly reupholstered by a design firm I'd hired last week. The room was lit softly, the way I'd always imagined it should be. Warm, dignified, serene. There, I opened the final email from Brookwell's executive board. The merger had been finalized. Our acquisition of Hensley Technologies had sent ripples through every major finance outlet in the country. I was now officially the youngest regional EVP in company history. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Elise. Camille, I think we should talk. Not about the house, just everything. I didn't reply. Then came Ryan. Hey, if you ever want to go over startup ideas, I'd love your insight. Can we meet up sometime? He had attached a deck. No subject line. Just a casual hope that I'd fall back into old patterns and offer help without acknowledgement. Again, no reply. Instead, I called Olivia. My best friend since college, the one person who never treated me like a placeholder in my own life. Did they arrive? She asked, instantly knowing. Yep, I said, sipping my tea. And then they left. Tell me you filmed their faces. I laughed. No need. Their silence was louder than anything. Olivia paused. You okay? I thought I'd feel smug, I said honestly. But I don't. Full. Like I just walked out of a role I was cast in without auditioning. She sighed into the phone. That's growth, Camille. You didn't just win. You reclaimed yourself. The next morning, a knock at the door startled me. I opened it to find my mother. Not with bags, not with an entourage. Just her. Alone. Holding a small wooden box in her hands. She looked older than I remembered. Maybe it was the way her shoulders slumped, or how her voice faltered when she said, "I'm not here to ask for anything." I stepped aside and let her in. We sat in the dining room. She placed the box on the table between us and slowly pushed it toward me. "I've been holding on to this for a long time," she whispered. "Not because I knew what to do with it, but because I didn't know how to tell you I was wrong." Inside the box were clippings, yellowed, folded newspaper articles. Young woman graduates valedictorian at Dartmouth. Seattle's rising star in strategy. Camille Harper. Women in finance under 40. Alongside them were printed photos of me at award ceremonies, screenshots of LinkedIn announcements, even the brochure from my MBA graduation. I felt my breath catch. "You kept these?" I asked, my voice quiet. She nodded, eyes brimming. "Every single one. I didn't know how to be proud of you without it sounding performative." And then the more I stayed silent, the harder it became to speak at all. Her fingers traced the edge of the table. "I convinced myself you didn't need us. But the truth is, I was afraid you'd surpassed us, surpassed me." I stared at her. My mother, once a woman of sharp opinions and endless commentary, now just a person stripped bare by time and regret. "I never wanted to surpass anyone," I said. "I just wanted to belong." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I know. And I failed you. We all did." I didn't respond. Couldn't. But I didn't push her away either. That afternoon she stayed. We didn't rehash everything. We just existed in the same space for the first time in years without a power imbalance. By sunset she stood to leave. At the door she turned. "I'd like to come back. Not for a reunion. Not for a photo. Just as your mom." I met her eyes. "Then come when you're ready to listen, not talk." She nodded and walked down the path, holding her purse tight against her chest, like it might steady her heart. 2 days later there was another knock. This time it was Elise. I almost didn't open it. But something in me, not softness, not forgiveness, but something else, urged me to face her fully. She was dressed down, a simple blouse and jeans. No makeup. No curated social media-ready smile. "Hey," she said. I didn't answer. "I'm not here to argue," she continued. "I'm not here to ask why you did it. I know why. I just came to say that you were always the strongest of us." I crossed my arms. She hesitated. "I read the Wall Street piece. I didn't even know you were being considered for VP. You never bragged. Never flaunted anything. You just worked. That's what you all wanted, right?" said. "A quiet sister. Convenient. Invisible." Elise winced. "You're right. We wanted you to fit into the background. And when you didn't, we punished you for it in subtle ways. I'm not proud of that." A long silence fell between us. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a folded map. "Here," she said, handing it over. "I marked a few places in Singapore. You once said you wanted to see the world. I just wanted to give you something. Not out of guilt. Just sister to sister." I opened the map slowly, heart tight. She added, "If you ever want company over there, I'll come. Not to tell you what to do. Just to visit. If that's okay." I didn't answer right away. But I didn't close the door either. She smiled faintly. "That's enough for today." As she turned to leave, I finally said it. "You can visit. But come as a sister. Not a supervisor." She looked back over her shoulder, nodding. "A real sister." He nodded. "That's the only kind I have room for now." That night, for the first time since I was a child, I sat at the estate's kitchen table and felt like I belonged. Not because anyone gave me permission, but because I finally gave it to myself. The next morning, the estate was bathed in the kind of light you don't forget. Warm, golden, resolute. I stood barefoot on the back porch, coffee in hand, listening to the ocean hush against the cliffs. I wasn't thinking about Elise's visit the day before or the wooden box my mother had left behind. I was thinking about Singapore. My relocation documents were spread across the dining table. Lease agreements, team onboarding schedules, travel briefings. A brand new penthouse overlooking Marina Bay was waiting for me, furnished with minimalist elegance and floor-to-ceiling windows. The title on my desk read, Camille Harper, International Vice President of Strategic Expansion. But even with that in front of me, I felt the familiar ache in my chest, that soft, echoing question. Was it enough now? Had I finally won? I wasn't sure anymore if winning was what I needed. But I knew I couldn't keep losing pieces of myself trying to fit into places that had no room for me. As I sorted through the last of the documents, I heard another knock at the front door. This time it wasn't Elise or Mum. It was Ryan. I hesitated. Ryan had always been the one who made the loudest noise with the least substance. 3 failed startups, 2 broken engagements, 1 crowdfunding disaster where he raised $70,000 and then ghosted his own investors. And still, Mom had called him a visionary. He stood there on the porch in a wrinkled button-down, laptop under one arm, the other scratching the back of his neck like he wasn't sure why he was even here. Hey, he said. I raised a brow. Look, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now. You're not wrong. He nodded. Can I come in? Just for 5 minutes. I stepped aside. Not out of sympathy, but because I wanted to see what excuse he'd bring this time. He didn't sit. Just stood awkwardly in the living room, glancing around. This place looks different. Better. It should, I said. It has a new owner. He nodded. Yeah, I heard. He set the laptop down on the coffee table and opened it. I brought something, he said. It's not a pitch. Not a money grab. Just something I've been working on. It's called Groundline, a platform for blue-collar workers to access financial literacy and short-term grants. I know it probably sounds like another one of my projects, but this time, I actually did the research. I worked with a team from a local community college. We ran user testing. It's real. I folded my arms. So why are you showing me? Because I want feedback. Real feedback. Not from a family dinner where everyone claps before I say anything. He looked at me then, not with arrogance, but with something closer to humility. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm not here to ride your success. I'm here because I finally understand how blind we've all been. I stayed silent. Then he added, and I enrolled in a 2-month accelerator program. If I get in, I have to present to a panel. I was hoping you'd be one of them. Just 1 session. 1 hour of your time. I looked at the laptop screen. His wireframes weren't terrible. His pitch deck was rough but showed effort. It was the most organized thing I'd ever seen from him. You really want my feedback? Yes. Brutally. Picked up my iPad. Then email me the full proposal. If you're serious, I'll give you a serious response. He smiled, not cocky, not smug. Just grateful. I'm not asking you to believe I've changed, he said. I just want to show you that I can start. He left quietly, without asking to stay or linger. And for the first time in my life, I watched Ryan walk away without a single ounce of manipulation behind his eyes. That evening, the estate felt different. It wasn't about ownership anymore. It was about boundaries, and finally being respected within them. At sunset, Olivia FaceTimed me from her apartment in Chicago. You look peaceful, she said. I am. I saw the reunion photos Elise posted, she smirked. Guess who wasn't in them? Me. No. Elise, she grinned. She didn't post any group shots. Just scenery. I think she's realizing the old photo ops don't work without the narrative. I laughed softly. We talked about everything, about Singapore, about Ryan's visit, about how my mother had stood in my kitchen, eyes wet with unspoken years. And when we hung up, I sat alone with the quiet. I thought about how far I'd come. Not just from being left out of family portraits, but from being the girl who thought she had to earn love through silence and service. Now I had a voice. And I had chosen to use it, not to hurt but to be heard. The next day my mother returned. This time she brought nothing. No box. No excuses. She sat at the edge of the porch, hands folded. "I'm not here to justify anything," she said. "Just to ask if we can begin again. On your terms." I stared at her, unsure. "I can't undo 20 years," she added. "But I can listen now. If you'll let me." I thought about the nights I had cried in that same house, wondering what it would take to be enough. And now, maybe, just maybe, this was it. Not revenge. Not victory. But the beginning of something better. "If we start over," I said carefully, "then we start without conditions. No more favoritism. No more casual cruelty disguised as tradition. And no more pretending." She nodded. "I understand." We sat in silence, watching the waves roll in. That evening I prepared dinner in the kitchen, the same one I'd once been banished to during reunions. This time I cooked for myself. For peace. For presence. And just before I sat down to eat, the front door opened again. Trinity. My youngest cousin. The one who used to follow Elise around like a shadow. She wore no makeup, no pretension. Just a long blouse, jeans, and a book tucked under her arm. "I heard Mom came by," she said. "I'm not here to fix anything. I just wanted to see you." She handed me a cold iced tea, still sweating from the drive. "You still read on the balcony?" He nodded. We walked outside together and sat, not speaking much. She didn't apologize. She didn't bring drama. She just was, and that was enough. Later, she said softly, "I took a leave from the firm. I want to visit Singapore. Not to tell you anything. Just to be your sister again." I blinked. "You were never my sister." She smiled tearfully. "Then let me try to become one now." I pulled out a chair. "Sit. Your tea's going cold." And under that deep orange sunset, the same one that used to remind me of isolation, we sat like people trying, maybe for the first time, to be honest with each other. It wasn't forgiveness yet, but it was something new. And maybe that was enough. Sunday afternoon in Monterey had a kind of quiet you didn't hear in cities. The hush of wind through pine trees, the occasional rustle of ivy on old walls, and the echo of memory sliding across every room. I had spent the morning sorting through documents in the office. Not the old family papers they'd left behind. I'd already boxed those. These were the ones that would define my next chapter. Board memos from Brookwell, a briefing binder for the Asian Strategy Summit, and an onboarding manual written entirely in Mandarin, which I was now stubbornly trying to learn. My flight to Hong Kong was scheduled for 6:15 a.m. the next morning. Everything was ready. The apartment near Victoria Harbour, the office suite at Kowloon Tower, and my heart, though still scarred, finally steady. I had just closed my laptop when I heard it again. That soft knock at the door. This time it was Mom. She stood there alone. No luggage. No carefully wrapped gift. Just empty hands and eyes heavy with years she couldn't rewind. "Do you have a moment?" she asked. He nodded. She sat across from me in the study, glancing at the stack of files and the suitcase by the door. "You're really leaving," she said, not accusing, just trying to accept it out loud. "Yes. And this house. I'll rent it out," I replied. "But I'm open to making it available for future reunions. If they're done right." She blinked. "Really?" "With one condition," I said. "Every year someone else organizes. Everyone contributes. No more showing up just to take photos for Instagram. No more pretending family is about appearances." She smiled, tears flickering. "I guess I'll have to relearn how to bake from scratch." We sat for a long time like that, neither of us rushing to fill the space. For the first time, I saw her not as the gatekeeper of approval or the cold matriarch of memories that never included me. I saw her as a woman who had loved imperfectly, sometimes not at all, but who had finally come forward to admit it. "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," she whispered. "But if you'll let me, I'd like to start again. This time I'll listen." I studied her face, the small tremble in her chin, the way she looked down between words. She didn't come to perform grief. She came to surrender pride. So I nodded. Then here's where we start, I said. No more rewriting the past. If you want to be in my future, you do it with honesty. I understand, she said quietly. And I'll learn. That evening Elise returned again. Alone this time. No entourage, no clipboard. Just a folded city map and a hopeful expression. I marked a few places in Hong Kong, she said, holding it out. I know you're probably planning your own thing, but I remembered you said once you wanted to see the world. I thought maybe this could help. I unfolded the map, a gentle smile tugging at the edge of my mouth. You can visit, I said. But only if you come as a sister, not a supervisor. She grinned. I wouldn't dare. You'd outplan me anyway. She stood for a moment longer in the entryway, eyes sweeping across the space. This house feels different now. It is, I replied. Then she added more softly, because you're finally in it. That night something happened I never expected. The whole family, or what was left of it, gathered around a simple dinner table at the estate. No fanfare. No professional photography. Just a roasted chicken, some wine, and side dishes everyone helped make. Ryan sat next to me, laptop closed, but a new printed draft in his lap. I'm not asking you to fund this, he said. But if you have time, would you look at it? I raised a brow. Is it less than 30 slides this time? 23, he said proudly. I even included a real budget this time. I'll look, I promised. And if you're serious, I'll treat it seriously. Mom let Trinity speak first. Another shock. And Trinity shared a plan for taking her legal career in a new direction. Nonprofit advocacy for immigrant women in California. I'm tired of arguing for people who don't need more power, she said. I want to fight for people who've never had any. The room went quiet. No one laughed. No one belittled. For once they listened. As the night settled in, I stepped outside with a glass of water and stood on the balcony alone. The porch light was on. The windows glowed with quiet voices. And I saw something I never thought I would. Elise and Ryan cleaning dishes together while Mom scribbled on a notepad, nodding as Trinity showed her something on her phone. They weren't perfect. But for the first time in years, they weren't pretending to be. Mom came out a few minutes later, holding her cup of tea. Are you really okay with moving so far away? She asked. I turned to her, smiling softly. I'm okay because this time I'm not leaving to escape. I'm leaving because I was chosen, not cast out. She swallowed. And this house. I'll keep it. Still mine. But if the family truly commits to doing things differently, if they show up with intention, not entitlement, I'll make it a place we share again. She nodded, eyes wet. That means more than you know. I hope it means more to them than it used to, I said. Before we went inside, she turned once more. I'll do my part, Camille. You deserve a family that's worthy of your love. I looked at her. This time really looked. She meant it. And it didn't erase the past. But it gave the future somewhere to begin. The morning of my departure arrived cloaked in a soft gray fog. I stood at the top of the stairs in the Monterey estate one last time, the early light filtering through the high windows, touching the old banister and the floor I had walked barefoot on as a child, and again as a woman who no longer needed to ask permission to belong. My suitcase was by the door. My passport and travel binder sat neatly in the front pocket. I had one last flight to catch, one I'd chosen for myself. The taxi was already waiting outside. But before I could step out, I heard footsteps. Elise, Ryan, Trinity. They were all on the porch, each with something small in their hands. No big speeches. No dramatic music swelling in the background. Just them. Showing up. Elise was holding a hand-drawn card. A map of Singapore. This time filled with local recommendations scribbled in blue ink. Ryan carried a printed final draft of his startup proposal. No typos this time, and a small note. Just feedback. I swear. Trinity had a white envelope with her plane ticket confirmation. She was coming to visit next quarter. And Mom. Mom held up a small handmade sign in careful handwriting. Good luck, Camille. I stared at it, blinking hard. Not because of the sign, but because it was the first time in 20 years my name had been written, on anything, in a way that made me feel like I mattered. I guess this is it, I said, adjusting the strap on my bag. Elise stepped forward. It's not goodbye. Just see you soon. But on your terms this time. Ryan nodded, sheepish. And if you ever want to scream at someone for all the years we sucked, you get one free punch. No questions asked. I laughed despite myself. Trinity handed me the envelope. I know this doesn't fix the past, but I want to be part of your future if there's room. I met her eyes. There's room. For the people who show up. Then I turned to Mom. She looked smaller somehow but softer too. I don't have anything profound to say, she murmured. Only that I know I failed you more times than I can count. But if this house ever becomes a place of reunions again, I hope it includes the version of me that tries harder. I didn't hug her. Not yet. But I reached out and squeezed her hand. That's all I ask. They watched as I stepped into the cab, my reflection flickering in the window like the ghost of a girl I used to be. The one who once stood outside family photos, pretending she didn't care. As the car pulled away from the estate, I looked back one final time. It was still the house where I had been forgotten. But now it was also the house I reclaimed. Not with anger but with resolve. And that meant everything. The flight from California to Hong Kong was long, but my mind was clear. I had spent too many years planning every move for validation. This time I was flying towards something I'd built with my own hands. No audience required. When I stepped off the plane, the humid air hit me like a promise. This city pulsed with energy, with ambition, with the same kind of grit I'd spent a lifetime forging in silence. The car service from Brookwell met me at the gate. They handed me a sleek portfolio with my new schedule, a keycard for my apartment in Marina Bay, and a small bouquet of white orchids. Welcome to your next chapter, Ms. Harper. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new apartment that evening, tea in hand, watching the harbor shimmer under 1,000 city lights. It was beautiful, but not because of the luxury. It was beautiful because it was mine. Later that night I checked my messages. One from Ryan, a subject line that just said, Challenge Week 1. He had sent me a revised business plan with new market research, and this time a clear revenue model. This time I wrote it not to prove anything, but because I truly want to learn. I read every word, then typed a few notes back. If you're sincere, it's never too late to begin again. Shortly after, Elise messaged me from New York. Starting a leadership course next week. Not to teach others, just to learn how to be a better sister. And finally a photo from Mom. It was of the keepsake box she once handed me. Now it sat on the family altar, next to a new framed photo. Family picture. All of us. No one cropped out. Below it, a handwritten note in Mom's script. Family is where you don't have to be perfect to be loved. I didn't cry, but my eyes burned. Because all those years I had begged to be seen, had climbed ladders, chased titles, collected silence in exchange for performance, I realized something. It was never about proving I was enough. It was about believing I didn't need their permission to be enough. Now I had that. And I had finally stopped knocking on doors that were never built for me. 'Cause I built my own. Monday morning arrived in Hong Kong with a different kind of sunrise. Not soft and gentle like California's coast, but bold, sharp, electric. The city buzzed with a kind of relentless ambition I recognized immediately. It was the kind of place where no one cared who your family was. Only what you brought to the table. And I had brought everything. I stood at the window of my apartment overlooking Victoria Harbor, watching cargo ships crawl through the morning fog, my reflection merging with the skyline in the glass. Behind me, the sleek apartment hummed in quiet efficiency. Open-concept kitchen, spotless design, curated calm. But this wasn't about aesthetics. It was about arrival. A knock at the door pulled me from the view. My assistant, May, stood outside with a stack of briefing folders and a fresh cup of oolong tea. Your media appointment is in 45 minutes, she said. They're doing a feature on the new executive board. Do they know I don't do fluff pieces? I asked, raising an eyebrow. She smiled. They want the truth, Ms. Harper. Not the brand. Good, I thought. Because that's all I had left, and all I needed. Downstairs at Cowan Tower, a young reporter waited by the lobby, recorder in hand, nerves scribbled across her face. Miss Harper, if I may ask, she began quickly, fumbling with her notepad. What would you say is your greatest success? I didn't answer immediately. I thought of every trophy I'd never received. Every birthday I spent forgotten. Every email that began with, "Sorry, there's no room left." I thought of the yellowed articles in the box my mother handed me, clippings from decades of silent pride. I thought of Elisa's carefully folded Hong Kong map, Ryan's startup pitch scribbled in pencil, Trinity's tea offering, Mom's trembling hands. I thought of the little girl washing dishes in Monterey while the family took photos without her. And I finally answered. My greatest success, I said, meeting the reporter's eyes, was learning that I don't need to beat anyone, as long as I don't lose myself. She blinked, then smiled slowly. That's tomorrow's headline, she said softly. I just nodded and walked into the building, the automatic glass doors parting silently. Behind me the city roared. Ahead of me an entire market to lead. But inside there was stillness. Because I was no longer chasing closure. I was choosing clarity. Later that afternoon, an unexpected email arrived from Ryan. Subject: Update on ground line. Enrolled in the accelerator. Got feedback from 2 mentors already. But yours hit harder, in a good way. If I actually make this work, I want you to be the first to know. Not because I need your approval, but because you gave me the truth when no one else would. I replied simply. Keep going. Let your growth be louder than your pitch. Then another message from Trinity. I landed. In Singapore. Can we meet for tea this weekend? And then from Elise. Found a community leadership program near me. I start next month. Not sure who I'll be after this. But I know I don't want to be the sister who only sees others when she needs something. Finally, another photo from Mom. It was of the family altar again. But this time, something new stood beside the keepsake box and framed photo. A single candlestick lit with a slip of paper beneath it. In my mother's handwriting. This flame is for Camille. May she always burn bright, even when we failed to see her light. I didn't cry. But my heart softened, stretched, made space. Because forgiveness, I realized, is not weakness. It's clarity. It's saying, you can come back into my life, but only through the door I built. And only if you walk with respect. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my Hong Kong apartment, looking out at the city. Neon lights danced on the harbor. Behind me, the desk buzzed with incoming strategy briefs, acquisition reports, and calendar invites. But none of that defined me. Not anymore. For years, I believed success was the only way to heal, that if I climbed high enough, they'd have no choice but to look up. But success didn't silence the pain. It gave me the power to choose peace instead. I closed my laptop and leaned back. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning, finally written in my own words. Camille Harper's story is proof that real power isn't just in reclaiming the things that were taken from you. It's in setting the rules for what happens next. Success is not revenge. It's restoration. And family, true family, it doesn't require perfection, only respect. If you've ever been overlooked, cast aside, or told you didn't belong, remember this. You do not need their permission to rise. You only need your own belief that you're worth more than the silence they handed you. Subscribe to Revenge Echoes for more powerful stories that prove silence is never the end. It's the pause before your voice finds its full strength.